Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, RC Matt. And in my last video of the Vantage series, I showed you how to change the steering system, the Ackerman plate, the servo saver, just so we get a better finish on the upgrades that I'm doing on the Vantage. Now today, in this video, I'm going to be changing the slipper clutch, as the one that's in the vehicle at the moment is a standard one. I bought this blue one. The only thing is, it still has a plastic spare. So it's a 65 tooth spur gear. Well, I've gone out and bought a replacement one. Same size, but this one's made out of metal. This one's made out of metal. So I'm going to show you how to attach the metal spare to the slipper system. And then we're going to install it into the vehicle. And then my next video, hopefully, weather permitting, we're going to get this vehicle outside for the first time and give it a test, see what it can do. Hopefully it can do some serious damage with the motor that I've got in it and the ESC. And all the upgrades, everything's finished now. Just need to get a new wing for the back because the wing on this, they really are flimsy. If it ends up on its roof, I've already got a crack in it there. So I think what I'll do is get a new wing. So let's crack on with this. Alright, so here it is. Tools for the job. This is a 2mm. Take this little grub screw out. So we're going to start disassembling the original spare gear. So don't take that all the way out. It comes with a bearing. So just slip that off. Now to get all this off, I have to undo this knot here. So I've got one of these. Take this all the way back out. Try and keep it all in order, then you know which way you're putting it all back together. No spring, and that's a spring holder, but it also holds these plates together. Also holds the plates together there. You should be able to take your first disc off. Inside is the actual slipper clutch system. Now, I think it's just made out of like a gasket material. Could be wrong. So what we're going to do is, that should now just pull off. So that's the plastic spare removed. I'm going to replace it with the metal one. Now I'm going to hold this quite flat, because I've noticed on the new one, in fact I'll put that down for a sec, I've noticed on the new one there's no cutouts for the clutch system to fit in. If you look at the original plastic one, there's little cutouts and the little gasket type thing fits into that. But on the new one, on the metal one, there isn't any. Shouldn't make any difference because I'm going to tighten it up quite a lot. So we'll put that in there. Hold that flat. Put your new one on. Right, now take a grip. Make sure it's all centered on the back. Like that. Yep, that looks alright. Just dropped it on. Hold that down there. Now I don't think it matters which way around it goes. It looks both the same on both sides, the clutch part. But obviously we're going to have to make sure it goes down straight. Before I put that on, I need to put the little pin in there. No, I don't want to go in there, does it? Let's take that back off. There we go. That's quite tight in that. It must be a tiny bit thicker. This metal plate. Metal. Just a bit of persuading. There we go. So that's nice and tight on there, that one. Whereas on the plastic one, it was quite loose. That just fell out. There's no way that's going to fall out. Right, now start assembling it back up. There we go. Centralise the gasket. Okay. Spring holder back in. Spring. Nut. In that order. Start tightening that back up. Now, I'm unsure if there's a certain tension on this spring. So I'm going to do it to what I think is the correct tension. And then just leave it at that for now. Might need adjusting later on. Let's put that bearing back on. Now, the grub screw needs to line up with the flat part of the section there. Tighten that back up. Now you could put some thread lock on that if you want. Not over tightened it. Right, so there you go, that's the first part of this job. We've changed over the plastic spare gear to the metal one. Still the same teeth, 65 tooth. All it's time now is to fit it into the vehicle and see how we get on with that. Okay, so I've removed all the screws from the top plate. Now, on this build, I've actually tie wrapped all the wires quite neatly to this top plate, so it doesn't move very far. So I'm not that bothered really, because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove the gearbox from the chassis. And hopefully it'll just lift up enough to clear this, and then I can get that out there and take that. That's a bearing guard. Take the black plastic bearing guard out. Remember, that goes in one way as well. So I'm just going to have to remove the gearbox. Try and remember which order you got these out of. I don't think it really matters because it's screwing into plastic, but I try to keep them in the right order. And of course, try and remember, if you keep taking these in and out, eventually you're going to round them off, round these holes off here. So what you can do, best practice really, is when you remove them, maybe more than once, is to put new ones in. Because if you tighten that up, if you tighten them up too much and you lose the hole, you're going to have to either drill it out or you're stuck with it and you can't do no more work on it. So right, took them screws out. This should just lift up enough for me to get that out. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove the car a minute. Right, so now we've got the rear gearbox out, we can have a bit of a look at this in a bit more detail. Okay, so if you look underneath, as you turn the shaft, it turns all the gears, which turns all the wheels. Now, I've noticed as well that when you buy a new system like that, you get that set. Now that set's got to go through there, and in the back there's a bearing. The bearing has to go on there, and then there's the C-clip locks it all into place, right? Which prevents you cannot pull that out of there. So what I've decided to do, rather than strip the old gearbox down, which is, well, it's not a big job, I wouldn't mind doing it. If you're going to service everything in there, put new bearings in, then it's an essential part of the job. But this gearbox is not that old. I disassembled the Vantage and it wasn't that old. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to bother stripping all this down. Right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this again and disassemble the original one and transfer all this onto that shaft. Now if you look at the original shaft, if I line these gears up spot on, you can see I've tightened that nut up a little bit too much. Because if you look on the original one there, it's a lot higher up. So when I build it back up, I'll adjust it to that sort of length. Okay? Right, there it goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this one first. But I'm not going to be using that, and I'm not going to be using that bearing. I'm going to put the new stuff on. Now I've not had that off before, and there isn't any thread lock on that at all, so I don't think I'll bother putting a thread lock on. So I'm just going to try and memorise where that nut is. You could mark it with a bit of Tipp-Ex, something like that, something to put a mark on it, so you know how far down you're going. I'm not going to bother. I don't think it's 100% important. I'll start taking it apart. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now 18 turns, and then that's come off the end of the thread. So if you remember 18 turns when you're putting it back on, you should be somewhere near enough. Like I say, there's probably nothing wrong with that bearing, but I'm going to use the new one. Same with that. I'm going to put a tiny little bit of grease in there. I'm just going to use that. So just pull all this apart. Yeah, quite a bit of wear in that, to be fair. Plastic spur off. Take all the old system off, even the pins. So there we have it, we've taken the old one off. I'm just going to give that a clean. Okay, so I've laid it all out. Just a bit of a breakdown really to see what it looks like. All the parts laid out in front of you. We start reassembling it now on that shaft. I give that shaft a bit of a clean. So I think the first thing is the pin in the bottom. New plate over the top. A washer. The new metal spur. Second pin in the bottom there. I've noticed on this shaft the pin is nowhere near as tight as when I built it up onto this shaft. Maybe that's a little bit thicker, I'm not sure. New pad. Disc. Try and centralise that before I put that on. There we go. Nice and centralised. Spring holder. Spring. New bearing. Putting the new bearing on. There, like that. Right. If you can remember, it was 1810. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 turns and it's not even touched that spring. So I've come to the conclusion that the spring on the original, which this is a lot further apart than that spring. So my theory of 18 turns isn't really very good. Not to worry. I could take the spring out and put the other one in one. I'm not going to. I'm just going to tighten this up so we've got some tension on it. It's a lot further down, that nut. I shouldn't think it'll make a difference. So that's the new slipper fitted. Time to put it back in the vehicle. Okay guys, so just before I start reassembling this car, I'm just going to have a look at the pinion gear on the motor. Now this is made out of brass, but I know for a fact that you can get hardened steel versions of this as well, and I will be experimenting with different sizes for this car. But for the moment we're just going to reassemble everything with the brass pinion gear on. Okay. So I'll just try and lift that up again and get that over the top there, into that. There we go. Took some getting in. Just check the mesh. I need to adjust the mesh once everything's reassembled. Remember the bearing cover goes in one way. Oh, yeah. Now, before I screw the bottom in, I'm just going to put a couple of screws in the top plate. Just basically to hold it all together. I'm not going to tighten them up yet. I'm going to get a few screws in. Okay. So try and tighten these up evenly in a cross fashion, so it comes down together really. So this one, don't over tighten them. So I'm not over tightening these because it's going into plastic. You don't want to thread the plastic. If you do, on more than one or two of them, it's a new gearbox. Rear diff, whatever you want to call it, gearbox. So that'll do for now. Meshing okay. Right, so it's just a matter of putting the top plate back on now and giving it a try. Okay guys, got it all reassembled now. The top plate's back on. I've just put my tester battery on just to give it a run, see how it runs. Have a look. There we have it. Seems to run nicely. Meshed in okay. Okay guys, so it's fully assembled now. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it's helpful to some of you. How to change that spur and exchange it for a metal one. Please join me in my next video, which is coming soon, which will be a motor and ESC install into my new Kyosho Turbo Scorpion. This was re-released in 2017 with a couple of upgrades from the original 80s version. So please join me in my next video for the motor install. As ever, thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. Thanks very much. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I would very much appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.